Breaking news. The mysterious passing of the billionaire CEO's beloved. And I have become the stand-in for his beloved. Upon entering the luxurious estate, the butler gave me a sinister smile.
If you don't leave, you will meet your end. The last one did.
I turned around, thinking, who will meet their end is still uncertain. I was very resistant to being a stand-in. But the offer was too tempting. The entire South City knew that the unattainable and reserved CEO Lucas had a beloved, whom he loved deeply. Yet no one had ever seen what his beloved looked like. She was protected very secretly. Many people suspected that there was no such person as his beloved, and it was just a tactic Lucas used to fend off pursuers. Others didn't believe it, but I did. This woman indeed existed. And she came to me in a dream, telling me she was wronged. After entering the estate, the tuxedo-clad Mr. Smith led me to a room on the second floor. A painting hung on the wall of the long corridor. I stood still, staring at the woman in the painting. She wore a simple white cheongsam with frog buttons, sitting gracefully on a wooden chair. Her long black hair flowed smoothly, and her appearance was stunningly beautiful. The woman in the painting looked lifelike, with a faint smile and a shallow dimple on her left cheek. Her smile was like the lingering spring rain in the south, drawing people in. I was somewhat dazed. Except for the attire, her face looked exactly like mine, even the dimple was only on the left side. I heard she disappeared mysteriously and was later found by the lake in the estate. It was said to be a self-inflicted end. In the blink of an eye, tears of blood flowed from the beautiful eyes of the woman in the painting. She reached out her blood-stained pale hands towards me, crying in a voice only I could hear.
Help me find out the truth. I died unjustly.
Since entering the estate, I had a vague sense of unease. Every corner of the estate was guarded by men in black, and the walls were covered with electric nets. The security was impenetrable, as if preventing someone from escaping. The entire estate exuded an eerie atmosphere.
Wash up, the young master will be back tonight. If you're scared, run away quickly.
Scared? Could he possibly eat me? At night, I tossed and turned, waiting for Lucas to come. Thinking about what Mr. Smith said today, I couldn't help but feel a chill down my spine.
If you don't leave, you will meet your end. The last one did.
The last one was Lucas's beloved, Mia. The killer must be someone in the estate. Lost in thought, the door suddenly opened. The rumored billionaire CEO Lucas appeared before me. I met his deep brown eyes. The man was tall and handsome. He must have just returned, his tailored suit jacket draped over his prominent wrist, the collar of his black shirt slightly open, and his long legs making his suit pants look perfectly straight. Abstinent, noble.
Miss Zhang.
His voice was low and pleasant, stirring the heart. I quickly jumped off the bed, started undressing, and pouted as I lunged at him. Unexpectedly, he pushed me away.
What are you doing?
He stood there, his handsome brows slightly furrowed, looking puzzled by my actions. Sleeping with you. You paid 50 million for me to be a stand-in, isn't it to sleep with you? As a stand-in, I knew the rules.
I can handle it.
He pinched his high nose bridge with his long fingers and said in a low voice.
Miss Zhang, I love Mia. Making you a stand-in is just to ease my longing for Mia. I hope you can be reserved and not do anything inappropriate.
I am a hopeless romantic. I thought he was quite affectionate.
All right. Get some rest early.
I watched him turn and leave the room, feeling bewildered. That's it? Nothing else? I felt a bit embarrassed taking the 50 million. I looked him up and down, his long back, broad shoulders, narrow waist, and perfect hips extending down his long legs. He was undeniably attractive. He seemed very capable. Contrary to the rumors of being cold and ruthless. I sighed with satisfaction and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, half asleep, I heard footsteps pausing at my door. Someone was watching me. I pulled the blanket over my head and went back to sleep, too scared to look. The next day, I opened the door and saw a fat maid in a maid's outfit cleaning up a pool of red liquid at the end of the corridor. At that moment, Mr. Smith suddenly appeared at the end of the corridor, peeking at me. His mouth stretched to his ears, giving me a creepy, sinister smile. I covered my mouth in fright and turned to go to Lucas's room on the third floor. Mr. Smith seemed very eager to scare me away. He had been trying to intimidate me since I entered the manor. His words implied that if I stayed, I would face consequences, and Lucas was terrifying.
I got up early today to help Lucas get dressed. In those novels, the stand-in always had to prepare the other person's clothes in advance and tie their tie in the morning. I wasn't looking for Lucas because he was handsome, but because I took his money and I should do my job properly. No need to act like I'm on the brink of disaster.
When I reached his room, I found the door slightly ajar. I raised an eyebrow, thinking he left it open for me. Good thing I was considerate. I gently pushed the door open and was amazed by the large and luxurious room. It was like a presidential suite in a top hotel. I wandered around for a while before finding his bedroom. I saw the handsome man lying lazily on the bed, his upper body bare, revealing tight, muscular lines. The silk blanket barely covered his important parts, and he was sleeping soundly, his abdominal muscles rising and falling with his breath. Such a scene was truly enchanting. I glanced at the pink bunny doll beside his pillow, then turned my attention back to preparing his clothes. Lucas woke up and saw me in front of him. He was first stunned, then rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things.
Who let you in?
I'm here to serve you.
Honestly, I felt a bit disdainful of him. Why pretend? You left the door open for me, and now you're asking this.
How did you know my room's password? Who told you?
What password? Your door wasn't closed. I just walked in.
Not closed?
His expression was serious, not pretending. I was puzzled. He was the CEO, the owner of this manor. Could someone dare to open his door without his consent? And his room was different from others, it had a password lock. Besides him, only Mr. Smith and the fat maid knew the password. Yesterday, I saw the fat maid cleaning his room. Mr. Smith and the fat maid's behavior felt very strange to me. Maybe it was them at my door last night, peeking through the peephole. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but shiver. I tentatively asked,
"What do you think of your butler and that maid?"
Lucas stood up, his back to me as he dressed, his skin pale and cold, his shoulders broad and powerful. His sculpted muscles extended to his waist.
Miss Zhang, thinking, tone, serious, sexy. Enticing. Sometimes, the more beautiful something appears, the more dangerous it is. Hidden beneath his handsome exterior might be a heart of darkness. Perhaps he was the one who ended his beloved's life. But, I must admit, such a great physique is wasted on clothes.
He finished dressing and turned to face me, his long fingers fastening the buttons. His voice was clear and cold.
Lucas, tone, serious, they are all good people. But you, if you dare enter my room without my permission again, don't blame me for being harsh.
What a threat. Anyone would think he was looking for a stand-in, not a scapegoat. So cold to me. I took a step closer to him, and he retreated step by step until his broad back was against the floor-to-ceiling window.
Miss Zhang, what are you doing?
Doing what a stand-in should do.
His handsome face tightened, his pale lips slightly parted.
Don't be nervous, dear. Your button wasn't done up properly.
I lowered my gaze, raising my hand to his chest to fasten his button. After fastening it, I smoothed his collar, deliberately leaning closer.
Seeing my face, shouldn't you be pleased? Why are you resisting? You seem to be very afraid of me?
Lucas, tone, serious Miss Shang, I know you're not her, and you can't replace her in my heart.
I don't need anyone to serve me, nor do I need you to do anything. I just need time to move on from the days without Mia. When the time comes, I'll let you go.
I straightened up, putting some distance between us, smiling at him.
Miss Zhang, tone, playful, Mr. Lucas, you love Mia so much, do you believe she ended her own life? Everyone knows you had someone special in your heart. If you loved her so much, why would she end her own life?
Lucas's handsome face darkened. He lowered his head, the fringe of his hair covering his eyes, hiding his emotions. But it was clear he didn't want to answer this question.
Haven't you ever suspected that she was harmed? Perhaps the culprit is someone close to you.
He raised his head, his emotions stirred, looking at me.
Lucas, tone, angry no one harmed her, you know nothing.
I carefully observed Lucas's facial expressions, seeing his Adam's apple move slightly, his eyes filled with sorrow. His voice softened.
Lucas, tone, sad Mia was my woman, no one dared to harm her.
Then why did she end her own life?
She had depression.
His voice choked, his shoulders trembling. As if he was about to break.
Lucas, tone, shouting leave, I want to be alone.
I nodded slightly, turning to leave. Any more disturbance would be impolite. Passing by the kitchen downstairs, I heard the sound of meat being ground. I glanced curiously at the fat maid, seeing her grinding meat with a vicious look in her eyes, grinning sinisterly.
Miss Zhang, thinking, tone, terrified, what kind of meat is she grinding?
Soon, breakfast was ready, and Lucas came downstairs to sit. I frowned, staring at the bowl of red soup and minced meat in front of me. It was thick, like blood mixed with ground meat. I picked up a spoon and stirred it, finding an unground rat's head inside, its face twisted with sharp teeth. The soup also had something resembling human fingernails. Immediately, a pungent smell hit my nose. I suppressed the nausea rising in my throat, glancing at Lucas's bowl of plain porridge.
What is this red, foul-smelling liquid?
I suspected it was blood, but whose blood? I thought of the red liquid I saw on the ground this morning. I was shocked. Could it be human blood? The fat maid gave me a disgusted look and ignored me. I noticed that this fat maid was quite arrogant, ignoring me in front of Lucas.
This is a beauty soup, good for the skin.
I stood up.
Then you drink it.
Mr. Smith gritted his teeth and glared at me.
What? Is there something unclean in this beauty soup?
I held the bowl to Mr. Smith's mouth, glancing at Lucas who was leisurely drinking his porridge. I cleared my throat.
Dear, is your butler trying to harm me?
So,
Make him drink it.
drink it.
Mr. Smith, unwilling but not daring to disobey Lucas, reluctantly took the bowl from my hand, pinched his nose, and drank the soup, his expression twisted in pain.
Serves him right.
When Lucas left, he instructed Mr. Smith and the fat maid.
Remember, next time ask Miss Zhang what she likes to eat. Don't make something that doesn't suit her taste.
After he left, Mr. Smith immediately ran to the side to vomit. In the vomit, a rat's paw was visible, blood-red, the scene extremely gruesome. Mr. Smith and the fat maid glared at me with hatred. They wished they could tear me apart on the spot. Mr. Smith walked up behind me, threatening in a sinister tone, his breath still reeking.
You won't live long. Today might be your last day.
If you're scared, leave now.
Leave? I sneered.
Your little tricks, trying to scare me? Since I entered the manor, you've been trying to scare me away. Why? What good does it do you if I leave?
Mr. Smith gave me a sideways glance, his eyes filled with murderous intent. These two definitely had secrets, or they were helping someone hide something. They must be afraid I would discover something. I withdrew my thoughts, ignoring him as I went upstairs. At noon, it started to drizzle. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the garden, seeing a young man with a refined and gentle appearance, carrying a backpack as he walked into the manor.
Who is he?
The young man seemed to notice me watching him, and in the light rain, he looked up and met my gaze. As he raised his head, his handsome features became clearer. He had a distinctive look, with a red mole on the tip of his nose. I frowned slightly, not knowing who he was. He smiled politely at me, then walked into the small building where Mr. Smith lived. Curious, I asked the bodyguards in the manor, and learned that this was Mr. Smith's son, Ethan. He usually stayed at school and only came back during holidays. He seemed more normal than his father. In the days that followed, Mr. Smith and the fat maid's attempts to scare me intensified. They collected my hair to make a voodoo doll. They gruesomely stabbed several sharp knives into the doll's stomach, writing in blood, "Die." Every midnight, they knocked on my door, leaving a dead cat at the entrance. And terrifying, grimacing dolls. The clothes on those dolls looked like human skin. Those blood-red eyes made my heart skip a beat, as if I had seen them somewhere before. I didn't know what secrets these two were hiding, why they were so desperate to drive me away. I had no time to deal with them, my heart was entirely focused on Lucas. Over time, Lucas treated me very well, as if he was compensating for something. Whatever I wanted, as long as he had it, he would generously give it to me without hesitation. He was good to me, but wouldn't let me get close to him. A persistent woman can wear down a reluctant man. I clung to him relentlessly. When he was tired, I gave him a massage. In the large room, when he woke up, I was the first to appear, handing him freshly ironed clothes. When he missed his beloved, I wore Mia's favorite white cheongsam, letting him lie on me, gently stroking his hair, singing him to sleep. Narrator, tone, sad when he was in a bad mood, I collected jokes to tell him. When he felt lonely, I would talk to him on the phone all night.
Lily tone. Hopeful, don't worry, I'm here.
Gradually, he allowed me to come and go freely from his room, and he was no longer cold towards me. He would hold me in his arms, his deep brown eyes filled with affection.
Lucas, tone, hopeful, stay by my side forever, okay?
I curled my lips into a cold smile. My dear, I will not only stay by your side. I will also personally end you. Mia was my twin sister. To enter the estate and find out the cause of her death, I orchestrated a chance encounter.
Lily tone. Serious for someone as wealthy as Lucas. It was difficult for ordinary people to approach him. I found out that he sometimes visited a horse riding club in the suburbs. So, I applied for a job at the club. When Lucas saw me for the first time, he was stunned.
I deliberately smiled at him, revealing the dimple on my left cheek. This made me look even more like my sister. As expected, he walked towards me with long strides.
Lucas's tone, serious, I will pay you 50 million to be my stand-in.
Narrator, tone, cheerful, I secretly laughed, the plan was going too smoothly. My sister's death could not have been a tragic end. My sister and I were orphans, we grew up in an orphanage. She was adopted by a wealthy family when she was 6. When I was 10, I was chosen by my adoptive parents and taken to North City.
Lily tone. Sad my sister and I were in different cities. We kept in touch more when we were young, but as we grew older, our contact became less frequent. It was mostly her reaching out to me. I could hardly reach her. Once she told me she had a boyfriend. Since she started dating, she became strange. Every time she called me, her tone was hurried, as if she was afraid someone would find out.
On the first day I entered the estate, I saw the impenetrable security, the walls covered with electric fences. They must have been used to imprison my sister, to prevent her from escaping. The day before she had an accident, we talked on the phone and agreed to meet in North City the next day.
Lily Tone. Sad it was our birthday. My sister said she bought me a gift and would spend the day with me, so she couldn't have ended her own life. Lucas said she had a mental health issue. I didn't believe it. My sister was gentle but cheerful. She wasn't the type to keep things bottled up. And over the years, she never mentioned having any issues.
I suspected Lucas killed my sister. After entering the estate, Mr. Smith and the fat maid's behavior was very strange. I suspected them too, but later ruled them out. With Lucas's power and capability, if my sister was murdered, he wouldn't just let it go without investigating. The person he loved the most died, and her body was found by the lake, yet he didn't even suspect. He directly concluded it was a tragic end due to a mental health issue. It was abnormal.
Lily Tone. Serious unless he was the murderer himself, and that's why he didn't investigate. But why would he kill my sister? I didn't know. To find out the truth, I pretended to be nice to him, testing him, trying to get close to him, to understand what kind of person he really was.
But he was very guarded, deeply scheming, not revealing any flaws. What he showed me made me feel that he was deeply in love with my sister. There were paintings of my sister on the walls, her favorite pink bunny plush on the bed in his bedroom. Even in his sleep, he murmured her name. I didn't know he could act so well. I always believed that no matter how deep a person's schemes were, with long-term contact, they would eventually reveal a flaw. I was waiting. I didn't find any anomalies in Lucas, but I discovered Mr. Smith and the fat maid's secret. Today, I was by the lake in the estate, where my sister's body was found, looking for clues. I accidentally overheard Mr. Smith and the fat maid having a secret conversation by the maple tree.
I quickly hid, concealing myself under the wooden railing by the lake.
It's a pity there's still a troublemaker. That woman must be dealt with.
That woman? Is it me?
She refused to leave. It's her own fault. She won't be satisfied until she meets a tragic end like the last one.
I was certain they were talking about me. After they finished talking, they embraced each other ambiguously. I had heard that Mr. Smith's wife had passed away, but I didn't expect these two to be involved. That night, I planned to go to Lucas's room to find him, but I overheard him angrily scolding Mr. Smith at the door.
If it weren't for the fact that you took care of me since I was a child, I would have fired you long ago. Don't think I don't know about you scaring Miss Zhang with a dead cat. Why did you want to drive her away?
Young master, that woman is just a gold digger. Everything I did was for your own good. That woman just wants to deceive your feelings and money. You will get hurt. When the old master passed away, he entrusted me to take care of you. You must understand, all the bad things I did were to protect you.
Remember, you are just a butler. I now suspect that Mia's death is related to you. If I find out anything, I will make you pay with your life.
The sound of a vase smashing to the ground came from the room. I left in a daze after hearing this. Back in my room, I collapsed on the bed. The murderer wasn't Lucas. Now the prime suspects were Mr. Smith and the fat maid. But why did they kill my sister?
So many things puzzled me. With these doubts, I planned to sneak into Mr. Smith's small building at midnight to investigate.
Unexpectedly, he and the fat maid were already eager to deal with me. Like every night they had threatened me before, footsteps paused at the door. This time, instead of peeking, they were opening my door. The sound of a knife tip prying the lock cylinder made a sharp, piercing noise. The door lock turned, about to open.
I was so scared that I immediately got out of bed, anxiously looking around the room for a place to hide.
Click! The door lock was pried open. The two people outside were about to push the door open. Would they come in and harm me directly? There was no time left. I was still standing there, not knowing where to hide. watching the door being pushed open a crack. My heart was in my throat, and I was sweating all over. Just before the door fully opened, someone grabbed my arm and pulled me into a rotating closet. The closet closed, and the light dimmed. In the narrow passage, a man stood in front of me, his long arms braced against the walls, his broad chest enveloping me. A fresh woody cologne scent surrounded me. Trapped in his arms, I slowly looked up, seeing a face so handsome it was almost delicate. The man's features were sharp, his expression casually frantic.
Why are you in my room?
Shoo, stay quiet.
I nodded slightly, my heart still racing. I didn't expect the closet in this room to be a secret passage.
Where's that woman?
Lucas and I listened quietly.
Could she have known we were going to deal with her tonight and ran away?
Impossible, she would have run away long ago if she wanted to. Keep looking, she might be hiding in the room.
Suddenly, the sound of things being overturned filled the room. In the narrow passage, Lucas and I were very close. So close, we were almost touching. Lucas's warm breath brushed against Emily's face, making her eyelids tremble as she turned her head away. She didn't know when these two would leave.
That woman must have escaped.
After a few seconds of silence, Mr. Smith suddenly laughed.
She didn't discover our secret, so it's fine if she left. She's lucky.
Mia was unlucky. She overheard our secret and tried to escape. Fortunately, we caught and silenced her.
Lucas and Emily were shocked, their eyes widening. So it was these two who harmed her sister.
This estate and Lucas's fortune will belong to my son. No one can threaten my son's interests. My son will be the future master of this estate, and you will be the mother of a billionaire CEO. Soon, we will enjoy endless wealth and glory.
The room echoed with their sinister laughter. After hearing their conversation, Lucas and Emily were filled with rage.
These two had to pay.
She quickly turned the switch, dashed out, and grabbed the fruit knife hidden under the pillow. Consumed by hatred, her eyes bloodshot, she fiercely stabbed the fat maid in the back.
You.
Mr. Smith, who was walking ahead, turned back at the commotion. Emily quickly withdrew the knife and plunged it into the fat maid's heart, ending her life instantly. Blood spurted out, splattering Emily's face. With a loud thud, the fat maid fell to the ground.
You wretched woman, dare to harm my woman? You deserve this.
He yanked her to the ground with force. Emily fearfully crawled backward. Mr. Smith picked up the fruit knife, its blade stained with red marks, and with a fierce and menacing look, lunged at me.
You wretched woman, dare to harm my woman? You deserve this.
I closed my eyes in fear. I didn't feel the expected pain of the knife piercing my body, but I heard Mr. Smith grunt, followed by the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. I slowly opened my eyes and saw Mr. Smith unconscious on the ground, with Lucas standing beside him, holding an iron rod.
Are you okay?
I shook my head and stood up, picking up the sharp knife from the ground.
Suddenly, I stabbed Mr. Smith in the head, pulling out the knife and furiously stabbing again. Blood gushed from his head, staining the ground. I saw Lucas's legs trembling, and when I looked up at him, I saw his eyes wide open, veins bulging on his forehead.
Who told you to harm him?
He harmed your beloved. Wasn't it right for me to harm him? Don't you want to avenge Mia?
Lucas stared at me, his brown eyes filled with a fierce intensity as if he wanted to harm me. After a few seconds of dead silence, he suddenly smiled.
It's fine, dead is dead.
He bent down slightly, reaching out to help me up, but I didn't touch him and stood up on my own.
What do you mean?
Nothing.
I planned to leave the estate that night. Just as I reached the first floor, Lucas blocked my way.
What? After avenging, you don't want to pretend anymore?
What do you mean? Do you know who I am?
Lucas sneered, raising his long fingers with bulging veins, and suddenly grabbed my neck. His grip tightened, forcing me to look up at him.
What do you mean?
Lucas tilted his head, his expression twisted for a moment, looking terrifyingly strange. He didn't answer me, just smiled sinisterly, then released his grip. I clutched my reddened neck, gasping for air. Lucas bent down, picked up the iron rod from the ground, and swung it at my head. The speed was so fast that I couldn't dodge. Bang! A heavy blow landed on my head, my body swayed, and everything went black as I lost consciousness. I didn't know how long had passed, or how many days, but my eyes moved, and my head throbbed with pain. When I opened my eyes, I was met with a pair of sinister brown eyes staring straight at me.
Ah.
Startled, I instinctively tried to back away, but found my hands and feet bound by heavy chains. I forced myself to calm down and looked around. It was incredibly dark. It looked like a dark room, like a deep cell, with a small barred window near the top of the wall. The faint light coming through was even more lifeless than the moonlight tonight. I withdrew my gaze, swallowing nervously. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, things became clearer. Lucas's face came into full view.
Awake, he said, his fingers brushing against my cheek. I've been waiting for you for days.
I turned my face away in disgust. When did you find out I was Mia's sister?
When? Guess.
Lucas, what do you mean? Why did you tie me up?
He stood up and laughed, a chilling laugh. In less than a second, he bent down and leaned close to my face. In front of me, he raised his hand and tore off his face.
I widened my eyes in disbelief. The torn-off face fell, revealing the face of a young man. I stared at the red mole on his nose in shock. You are Mr. Smith's son, Ethan.
At this moment, my mind was in chaos. Could it be that the person I had been interacting with was Ethan all along? No wonder he was so furious when I harmed Mr. Smith.
Where is Lucas?
What? Do you like him too?
Before I could respond, he grabbed my head and forced me to look ahead.
Your Lucas is there.
I thought nothing could be more terrifying than Ethan tearing off his face in front of me until I saw a large glass container not far away. Inside the formaldehyde was a man's body without a face, with broken internal organs. Horrifying, gruesome, and ghastly. I curled up in fear, trembling.
I didn't want to do this to you, but you didn't listen, you provoked me, and now you want to run.
It turned out Lucas had passed away long ago, before my sister was harmed, and no one knew Ethan had killed Lucas. My sister, Mr. Smith, and the fat maid always thought the person in front of them was Lucas. They even continued to poison Lucas's food. But Ethan knew all this, and sometimes to avoid suspicion, he would eat less and then induce vomiting. He had known my identity all along, no wonder he was so easy to deal with when we first met at the stables. He knew I suspected him, so he deliberately scolded Mr. Smith, hinting at who the real murderer was, to clear his own name.
Why did you replace Lucas? Did you like my sister?
Like your sister? You're overthinking it. Since I was a child, my father always compared me to Lucas, even giving me a name with Sue in it. He would come home every day, complaining in my ear about how successful other people's sons were, belittling me for being useless. But it wasn't my fault I was born into a servant's family.
Ethan said, coldly curling his lips, seeming to harbor deep hatred.
My mother died because he accidentally harmed her while drunk. I was hiding in the house at the time, and he thought I didn't know. To be honest, I was quite happy when you eliminated that fat maid, saved me the trouble of dealing with her myself.
It was your father's fault. Why did you harm Lucas?
He always looked down on me, making me kneel to polish his shoes. I wanted to eliminate him for a long time. I wanted to experience what it was like to be him, to enjoy the money and power he had. I wanted everything he had, including the woman he liked.
He bent down, lifting my face with his hand.
At first, I just wanted to replicate everything. I didn't have any feelings for you. But you were so passionate. I had never experienced being cared for. You sang to lull me to sleep. You stayed with me through the night. What should I do? I fell for you.
Don't touch me.
I turned my head, trying to shake off his hand. He didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled, a cold smile, as he caressed my cheek with his calloused fingers, slowly moving down. Suddenly, he grabbed my jaw with such force that it felt like he wanted to crush me. I winced in pain, sweat trickling down my forehead.
You're too disobedient. How about I turn you into a specimen? That way, you can stay with me forever.
I was certain he was a madman. He let go of me and turned to get a knife. He turned back, holding the blade, his smile sinister. Step by step, he walked towards me. He suddenly raised the knife, aiming at my heart.
5 years later.
I woke up from a nightmare. Lucas was awakened by me and held me in his arms. He gently stroked my hair.
Did you have a nightmare again, honey?
I nodded. In the dream, a young man wanted to turn me into a specimen. It was so scary.
Don't be afraid, honey. I'm here.
I looked at Lucas with happiness. All the women in South City envied me for having a handsome and affectionate CEO husband. 5 years ago, an accident caused me to lose my memory due to a head injury. I couldn't remember anything. Lucas said I was his beloved, the woman he cherished deeply. He treated me exceptionally well, his eyes always filled with intense love when he looked at me. Over the years, his love for me was sincere and passionate. So, we got married. I still remember, on the day we announced our marriage, South City was in an uproar. It made headlines on major news platforms, with comments from netizens.
Shocking. Lucas's beloved died less than 2 years ago, and he's already marrying someone new? I thought this abstinent CEO loved his beloved deeply.
Maybe it's a powerful alliance. Rich people do that. It's not about love.
Just wish them well. We can't get involved in the affairs of the wealthy.
However, these headlines were quickly suppressed by Lucas with a large sum of money. I happened to see it and angrily asked Lucas,
How come you have a beloved? Is she really gone?
No. I only have you. They wrote nonsense. You were just in a coma. They said you passed. Don't mind them.
I naturally believed Lucas's words. After all, he treated me so well. Today, Lucas came back very late. I had already fallen asleep, but I vaguely heard his gentle footsteps entering the bedroom. He stopped in front of me and kissed me, then went to freshen up. I opened my sleepy eyes and went to the bathroom. The bathroom door wasn't fully closed, and through the reflection in the mirror, I saw Lucas peeling off his face, revealing the face of a stranger. There was a red mole on the tip of his nose. I covered my mouth in horror, but still made a sound. The man rushed out of the bathroom, raising his hand high and striking my neck fiercely. Before losing consciousness, I saw him take out a box of white pills from the drawer and feed them to me. The next day, I woke up. Lucas pinched my cheek and gently asked,
Honey, you're awake? Are you hungry? I'll ask Mr. Johnson to prepare breakfast.
I shook my head and snuggled into his arms. Strangely, my neck ached terribly, as if I had been hit by someone last night. I couldn't remember what happened.